few weeks ago on the fantasy blog, I wrote about the Colts. It was their turn for a rundown of fantasy kind of projections for their key players. And I wrote a bunch about Jonathan Taylor and my concerns about his workload. How many times he's had 300 plus touches in a season, even going back to college. And one of those seasons that I didn't even mention, he had 299 touches. So heavy workload and a lot of missed games in recent years. And his ADP at the time was RB8. He was the eighth ranked running back. Made absolutely no sense to me. Still doesn't, even though he's down to 10. And that's because it's unrealistic to me that Taylor, coming off the workload he did and the workloads he's had and the injury history and the question marks at quarterback, that he can rise to the occasion and be a top 10 running back. It seems like a lot of things have to go right, and I don't want a lot of things to have to go right to get value from a top 10 running back draft pick, a first or second round pick. Doesn't make sense to me. DJ Giddens at the time, the rookie fifth rounder with bell cow experience in college, came in at, he was the 69th ranked running back. Today, he's 73. Also doesn't make sense. Why would Taylor go down and why would Giddens go down? Now, granted, they've got, Khalil Herbert and Tyler Goodson. I don't know if Herbert has enough gas left. Maybe I'm mistaken on him. His ADP was around the 90s a few weeks ago. I don't think it's changed much. And Goodson is just, a filler. Giddens has the potential to be a certifiable handcuff. In a backfield that seems to be screaming for someone to be able to step in and take over if Taylor continues on this track of missing a few games in the season. I talk a lot about running back workload. I don't want to belabor it here. But Giddens is an example of a handcuff running back that I would want to lunge for late in drafts, whether or not I've drafted Taylor. Because A, he's a rookie with bell cow experience. B, there doesn't seem to be anyone who will take the number 2 role from him unless he really just messes up during the preseason. And 3, the offense is capable enough that he should see some goal line work. He should see enough touchdown opportunities that, we're not talking about, and with all due respect to the Saints, we're not talking about the Saints this year, where it's hard to envision how they score unless Alvin Kamara is driving the car to get into the end zone. Giddens seems to be someone that people are forgetting about. And what I'm struck by, as I was looking at ADPs today around Giddens, I see a bunch of handcuffs. I see Justice Hill at 66. I see Will Shipley, who might or might not be the number 2, but he's angling for it at 68. Elijah Mitchell, who might or might not be number 2 at 69. Kareem Hunt, his counterpart in Kansas City, is 70. Raheem Mostert is 71. Blake Corum is 72. DJ Giddens, like I said, 73. And Woody Marks, Houston, another potentially hugely undervalued running back, at 74. He starts the preseason, Woody Marks, rookie, as the number 3 running back on the depth chart, but he could actually start a game or two in September, depending on the health and well-being of Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb. So there's a bunch of these guys that all seem to be going around the same time, and it could be that there's a run on handcuffs that's happening at a certain point in drafts, deep leagues, 16th round or something like that. All of a sudden, somebody grabs Elijah Mitchell, somebody else gets Hunt, and before you know it, you're off to the races, and everyone's just trying to grab a guy. Or it's late in the draft, and the guy who drafted Jonathan Taylor is taking Giddens, and the guy who drafted Joe Mixon is taking Marks, and so on and so forth. But there does seem to be some kind of run to have these guys all back to back to back to back to back. For me, not all handcuffs are built the same. Elijah Mitchell, doesn't get much love in the passing game. Kareem Hunt is clearly post-prime. Raheem Mostert is clearly post-prime. There are guys that you get because they're ascending, and there are guys that you get because you hope that they're not regressing, even though the writing's on the wall that they're regressing. I always want ascending handcuff running backs because one bad game from a handcuff running back who's descending, and they might not be the handcuff anymore. But if they're ascending, then the coaching staff might see in them an investment that they will get better. The 3.2 yards per carry on 14 carries in the first 2 games is not an indication of what they can do across the whole season. So when I look at Taylor, and what I want to sum up, this will be a pretty short podcast, but it doesn't need to be longer than this, is that Taylor comes with huge risks. And I would say probably more risks than any other top 10 running back who isn't named Christian McCaffrey. And McCaffrey's in a different camp because McCaffrey has RB1 upside. And everyone realizes that. And so some people are going to reach for him because of that history. Jonathan Taylor technically does, but realistically doesn't. I think his upside is somewhere around RB6 to RB8, and that isn't good enough for me to take a guy who's now a 10 ADP. I would rather take Giddens in the belief that Taylor's workload, as high as it is year after year, will shorten his career. Sadly, that the number of times over the last 8 seasons, including college, that he's had 300 plus touches or 299 plus is more than Derrick Henry had during the same stretch. And that's scary because Derrick Henry is probably the biggest workhorse we have in the NFL over the last 10 years. So as you're thinking about filling out your roster on draft day with a handcuff running back, Giddens jumps out as a guy who you don't have much to lose. We don't know much about him. I would say in the next couple of weeks, we might know a lot about him. If he does well in the preseason, then shoot. Then his ADP will probably climb into the 50s. And then you got to reach for him even earlier to get him. It's still probably worth it, but it won't be as fun as getting him with an ADP of 73. I'm DJ Riddell, Fantasy Football for Winners. Follow me on the blog. Subscribe to anything you want. We'll see you tomorrow.